Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on the topic of hardware asset management in Jira Service Management. Today's topic is going to take you into a deep dive into some strategy around asset management and also show you some great tools, tricks, and ideas for doing excellent asset management in JSM. We've got three speakers today. Rod Schmidt from Atlassian is going to be speaking first. He's an IT service management advocate for their team. He'll be talking a little bit about Atlassian as a company and the JSM product line. We've got Steve Jones, our president, who's going to weigh in on best practices around hardware asset management and cue up today's conversation. We've got Eric Krueger, who's a principal consultant with StrataCom, who's going to be getting a little bit more in the weeds. We are recording today's content. We'll be sharing with you afterwards. It takes a couple of days for us to upload, but we'll be getting the links out to you within the following days in case you'd like to rewatch or share, or if you have to leave early for any reason. We'll be collecting Q&As in the chat, so as you think of questions, please line those up. At the end of today's session, we'll be going through all of the questions that we get in the chat session there, so stay tuned at the end for all the answers you're looking for. With that, why don't we get straight into it? I'm going to turn it over to Rod to kick us off today.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Can you hear me okay, Laura?
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Again, as Laura mentioned, I'm the ITSM advocate from Atlassian. Previously, I was with Cherwell for 6.5 years and about a year with Avanti. And I've been with Atlassian now for over a year and a half. I just want to give you a little background on JSM and why it's the fastest growing ITSM platform in the market. And you can look that up, talk to Gartner, Forrester, any of them will tell you that. So it's not just me saying that, but it's been an exciting year and a half here as there's just a lot of activity. We have a very quick time to value with our product. It's actually built on the Jira platform, if you're familiar with that. And that allows the operations team to really interact with the DevOps side. And you can also leverage our Confluence product, which is one of the best knowledge platforms on the market. And all of that is worked together with our very intuitive UI and the tool, very modern tool to make us the fastest growing solution and platform in the market. Our TCO is very low and predictable. We're not going to come back to you as some vendors do on a quarterly basis asking for more licenses because of different things that have come up. And we're also the best value and that we're quick to implement. Our license costs are very reasonable. You get included, for example, virtual agent, which is AI driven, is included in the product. That's funny. Just a quick story. Just used that a couple of weeks ago. I got a new cell phone and couldn't get our VPN to work. I did the whole thing through our virtual agent, and it took me through a process of about 10, 15 different questions. I never interacted with any person. The virtual agent product took me through it and got everything working. It also includes our Ops Genie product, which is a PagerDuty replacement. It's on-call management. That's all included in our product. So very reasonable costs and total cost of ownership with the JSM product. We only license fulfillers. So if a agent's modifying a ticket, that requires a license. Approvers, no license required. Anyone coming in through the portal to submit a ticket, no license required, unlike a lot of the competition. I already mentioned the alignment of DevOps and operations. That's a big reason why a lot of people like to go with JSM because of that integration there. It does make things a lot smoother. You're not cutting and pasting tickets and recreating tickets. It's just a great, logical, common sense way to go. We also include ESM. With the other products in the competitive market, they charge for HR, they charge for facilities, they charge for asset management or customer service. That's all included in our product and the base licenses. So that's a great benefit there. And we also have workflow automation, is low code, no code. You can develop and do things without a team of Java developers. And much like the Cherwell product, it one-step technology, very easy to configure and set up. Want to go forward one, Laura? Just to back me up on that, great reference story at Finish Line. They moved actually from ServiceNow over to JSM. And here's some of the benefits they derive. Just what I've already told you, that cost savings, does all the same functions as the previous ITSM solution, so you won't lose functionality. You'll just frankly save some dollars with that. Who doesn't want to do that? Very intuitive product, blah, blah, blah. Same things. They use it for HR. They use it for real estate, customer care, very heavily usage there. And those same stories apply to American Equity. They were a Cherwell customer, moved over to JSM because the connectivity into Jira. Hy-Vee, big user of the JSM product. They also, a great story there, they created an HR case management application within a couple of days, again, just because of that technology, the low code, no code. Indeed.com just replaced one of the major competitors out there. So it just continues to grow, and we have more and more great stories. And then the last slide for me, Lori, want to pop that one up? And instant credibility. We're up in the upper right-hand quadrant with Gartner, and I always tell people, recommend go out to the Peer Insights and get some data from our customer base. We are a major player in this market, and yesterday I replaced BMC in a deal that I had been working on. So there's a lot of reasons why we're the fastest growing ITSM platform in the market. Any questions on just some of the basics there?
I
Okay,
don't see.
yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Laura.
All right. With that, I'd like to introduce our president, Steve Jones.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Laura, can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Very good. So a lot of you already know about StrataCom. This is some of the history here for us. The bottom one here, Legacy Cherwell partner. If you all haven't heard, we did finally hear yesterday official word from Avanti that Cherwell will be end of life December 31st of 2026. So that was some big news yesterday regarding Cherwell. I know a lot of the folks on the call are running Cherwell and are thinking about next steps. So Laura, if you can do next slide. So when the term asset management comes up, a lot of times we can have many different answers on what that means. So wanted to spend just a couple minutes here before Eric starts the demo to talk about what our view of hardware asset management is. I'll let everybody digest this slide for just a moment, and you'll see some of these moving parts in the demo that Eric does. And also after this webinar, Laura can share this slide deck too, if it's helpful. Okay, Laura, next slide, please. Again, I'll give everybody just a moment here. What we're finding, and it may be the reason some of you are on the call, we're finding a lot of customers just don't have a good handle on hardware asset management. They may have their CMDB populated. Many are not sure that it's well populated. Sometimes there's not a lot of trust in what's in the CMDB. So we think our process here can help you get to a much better place than you're at now. Go ahead, Laura, the next slide. Again, I'll give everybody a chance to digest. I did want to mention one thing here. We call this phase 1 CMDB maturity. What we would consider phase 2, and we won't be covering in this conversation, is really around relationship mapping of CIs. Sometimes if there's services mapping, if you're tracking an outage, impacted users, that gets into some pretty high complexity, and we see very few customers get to that phase 2. So here, phase 1 is what we'll be covering. Again, I'll give a moment to digest. Okay, Laura, next slide, please. So I would say in the last 5 years, we've seen most of our customers, and I think this is not just Cherwell customers, it's ITSM in general. Most folks have gotten pretty good at onboarding. It's one of the more complex requests that's handled through ITSM and delivers the most value. And in the context of hardware asset management, this is when the life cycle begins, when that hardware is requested there in that third bullet. Hey, Laura, next slide, please. We've got what we're laying out here is 3 different key personas of people in your organization that care about hardware asset management. First on this list is the person that normally is in charge of procuring hardware, placing orders, and then receiving it, even at the loading dock. But one of the things that you'll see Eric show here in the demo is some of the mobile barcode scanning functionality, how we can integrate in real time with Jira Service Management, the assets module of Jira Service Management. This is a pretty important step. We do hear pretty regularly about how equipment is received at the dock and is lost right away. This really helps right from the beginning create some structure around where the assets are. Okay, Laura, next slide, please. So the service desk, they are major consumers of a well-populated CMDB, and we also rely on them to update certain CI attributes that aren't discoverable by tools like SCCM or Intune. Sometimes maybe that's whether a server is dev or production, or maybe the location. Mobile barcode scanning can also capture location, but sometimes that's a good thing to capture at the service desk. Okay, Laura, next slide. And certainly field service technicians. They can be big consumers of not only a mobile client for barcode scanning, but it's pretty common for them when they're out in the field to have de facto incidents created. So we want them to have that ability to barcode scan a device, open an incident, and work that ticket and get credit for working that ticket. All too often what happens is they'll solve problems while in the field and not get credit for that work. Okay, Laura, next slide, please. At this point, I'll go ahead and hand over to Eric for the demo. And again, as Laura mentioned, we'll be working through Q&A session at the end, so don't hesitate to pose any questions.
All right, thanks, Steve. I'm going to do a little overview of just the asset module in JS, and then I'll be focused on what we consider the biggest hole that we've seen with many customers, and that is receiving assets when they come in and updating assets out in the field. So it's really common. I think most asset management systems, they get populated from a scanning tool. So JSM's got its own scanning tool that can populate this, or you can pull in data from pretty much anywhere. You can pull it in from Intune or SCCM, some of the popular asset management systems out there. So that's really common. That's really easy to do. That's just base product. And where we see a lot of customers have issues is when things come in, how do they get it easily into their JSM asset tool or their JSM CMDB? So I'll be going through that. So just a quick little run through on this. So the asset module in JSM is really extensive. And they have lots of templates for lots of different types of assets. This is just a demo site that we've got set up that has lots of different types of assets. And you can see there's lots of different groups of assets in here. So they can be grouped by different types. You can separate these assets by different type. You can see a lot of our consultants have been in here creating assets. I'm going to focus just on the IT employee asset. That's going to be the most common, and specifically on laptops. Now, this could be anything, laptops, phones. I'm just going to focus on laptops because it's the easiest use case. And it seems like that's what most of our customers are getting and scanning in. So we can see, and we work with customers that use status a lot. So if I just wanted to see everything that was in stock, I can just go into here and I can just look for in stock and update this filter, and it'll just give me everything that's in stock. So really easy to find what you've got. You can see there aren't a lot of laptops in here, but you may have a lot more devices in your system. So, and we can edit these right from the asset tool. We can change any of these fields that we want. And it works as you'd expect. There's links to other objects to pull in information like people and manufacturers' models, things like that. So pretty much your standard asset management database that you feed data into from other data sources, or you use the scanning to pull in items that are already networked and on the wire, and they can go scan those and pull in. So I'm just going to jump out to my phone, and I'm just going to show some of the functionality of our native mobile client with barcode scanning. So if you're a current ShareWell customer, this is going to be pretty similar. I just need to figure out to share a phone again. Okay, so this is my iPhone 11. I did order an iPhone 15, supposed to come tomorrow, actually, but like my iPhone 11. So you can see this is mainly going to be used by field tech. The hole that we're trying to fill here, it's basically doing the different types of scanning. So when people are out in the field or they receive an asset, a lot of times when you receive an asset, you don't have a lot of information on it other than the serial number and the make and model. So I'll go through that. And then I'll also go through how easy it is to look up an asset when you're out in the field and either mark it for replacement or change some managed data about it. So who owns it, things like that. First of all, we can just go in and look, just like in the asset tool, we can go in and look at all the laptops that are in here, and we can sort, do the same thing. We can look for anything that's on order or in inventory. So if I want to scan, if I'm out in the field, this is really common, and I want to scan in one of these devices. I've got a couple different options. I can either do it, in this system, I'm tracking asset tags and serial number, so I could scan either one of those. And I've got two different options that I'll show you for scanning. And we're coming out with a third. So we've had some requests from customers to actually do OCR scanning. So we can read serial numbers, like on Macs is really common to have the serial number. So this is really all about ease of use for technicians finding assets and putting assets into the database. So let's just do, I'm just going to do a serial number scan. I'm going to use a QR code, but this can search on really any type of barcode. I think we support, 30 different types of barcodes. So that pulls up the asset. And then from here, I can just click edit and I can go in and I can change information about this asset. For example, if I wanted to set this asset to needs repair, I can do that. If I want to change the owner, I can give it an owner, and then I can just update it, and those will be updated. So we're just updating right in Jira Service Management. If I want to search by asset tag, I can also do that. So I've got another QR code for asset tag. Oh, that one. Oh, I changed the number on that one. We can search by serial number or asset tag. The reason I changed it is because I typed it into my NFC tag wrong. We also support NFC tags, so you won't really be able to see this, but I'm just bringing up an NFC tag here. This is what they look like. They're just these little tags. I really like these tags. So that this came from a customer request that was going to use these NFC tags to tag some items, and they wanted to be able to do that. So we added NFC tagging to our mobile device, but I really like these tags. It's really simple. You just tap your phone on the tag and you can find. So this was an asset tag search, and you can see this is 2339. And I think the asset tag I had was 23. So same thing, I can go in and edit it. So it's just a really easy way to look up these assets by serial number or asset tag just with an NFC. So if you're wondering about tagging your assets, like maybe this would be really common for an asset tag, you could use one of these little NFC scanners. Or if you've got a lot of desktops, you can actually put like the serial number or the asset tag on these and just glue them or stick them right to the asset. And so they're really easy to get at. So instead of having to go to the back. So I really recommend these NFC tags. They're really inexpensive, and they're really easy to add data to, and they're really easy to look data up with, and super light. And I think they last a long time. So now the second kind of thing I'm going to show is when assets come in from the dock and you want to put them in inventories. This is typically the biggest hole that we see in customers' workflows. So customers we've worked on asset management workflows with, this is really the missing piece. Like, how do I get everything that came in that I ordered into my CMDB or my asset management database? So because it is a pretty manual process, it's not scannable. Typically these devices need to be staged and have software put on them. And a lot of times what we're finding is companies will order a bunch of, say, laptops or iPads in advance. So that they might order 50 or 100 of these things, and they'll all come in at once, and then they'll put them in a room, and hopefully they won't forget about them. And we have talked to customers who have found rooms full of iPads or laptops or iPhones that came in and they just didn't know they had because they weren't available. So when they went to look up, they just didn't show up. So I'm just going to show what it's like to add. I'm actually going to do multiple. So it's basically the same as adding a single device, but it's a really common use case. So what we've got is in our add multiple, I've got serial number that'll scan. I'm hard coding the current date time in for the name because generally these systems aren't going to have a name when they come in. And I've got this asset piece set up to require a name. So current system date time is always going to be unique. The status I have automatically set to in stock. I'm not going to set an asset tag. Maybe we'll do that later. Then I've got a couple other sticky fields. I'm going to assume these are all the same type of device. So let's assume these are all Apples and they're all MacBook Pro 16s, space gray. So you can see this list. So this just points back to assets. Their asset has a list of basically qualified items that I can choose from. So these are the products that this company supports, basically. A ThinkPad or two different types of MacBook Pros. So now I can go in here, I can scan this, and I can either scan NFC or barcodes. I'm just going to scan this first serial number. And so now it's put the serial number in, I can just hit OK, and it's actually created that asset in the database. But you can see status is still in stock, manufactured model are still the same. So to scan the second one, all I have to do is scan it and hit OK, and it creates two, and then to scan the third one. And you can actually get the scanner just to pop up automatically if you don't want to tap the little button. I have that turned off, but you can have it come up automatically and save yourself one tap. So if I want to scan these 4 devices, I can just scan them in. And you can see we use this little aimer. So that comes in handy. And you do have to hover over. Right now we've got it set up to hover over for 1 second, and you can actually change that. In fact, I think we're coming out with a release where you can set that. So some people have complained that's a little long. But one of the things that was happening is sometimes these devices have lots of serial numbers altogether on the back of a device, and it was just difficult for customers to scan it in. So we talked about doing a box scan, and we settled on this little pointer scan, this little target scan, and you can see it'll turn green as I hover over. When I move over one of these QR codes, it turns green. That means that QR code, it's got it's returning to us a good scanner. But because there might be multiples, we're doing a little pause, so it doesn't scan until I hold it over for about a second. For all you programmers, that's 1,000 milliseconds. This is what we're setting it to. Of course, I picked the one that I didn't actually create. So then once we've created it, we can look it up in here, and now we can go in and we can say, oh, you know what? This is owned by Cassie, and we'll set that to her. So you can set the owner, and really you can set whatever fields up you want in here. So the asset management schema is really extensible. It's really easy to use, and anything that you want to do, you can set up in here. That's a little run through of the asset management system and how you can manage those from like out in the field. So I think we'll move into the QA session of this.
Okay, very good. They're definitely flowing in. So let me scroll up to the very top. Some even noted what screens you were on, which is really helpful.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go through starting at the top. Where would we populate VMs?
Yeah, so let me reshare back out my screen. I'll see if VMs are in this. VMs are going to go in here. I don't know if this one is set up for virtual machines, but there are different templates when you add these different schemas for assets. So virtual machines would just be another template that you would add, and would just create another object. And then you can decide where you want to put that. So might be under employee assets, or if it's a desktop VM, or you might have it under something else that you like other IT asset management schema. But it would go in here. It'd have its own schema. I just don't have a VM schema in here. I can't remember how many schemas asset supports, but it's dozens or hundreds of different schemas.
Okay, thanks. Next up, what data is stored in the application portfolio?
Really whatever you want. Here's cloud subscriptions. This is just sample data, but it's got cloud subscriptions in here. And you can see they're using some references to access policies. Who has access to this
Eric,
cloud?
I don't think we're seeing your screen. Can you try sharing again?
Yeah. Did it not share properly?
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. So under this software catalog, they've got this cloud subscriptions, and you can see they've got who the SaaS provider is, what the category is, but then they've also got these references. So it's got an outbound reference to Adobe, which is the SaaS provider, and then also an inbound reference to the access policies. So who can access this and who has what in here? If you've got a software portfolio, you would have a schema for that, and then you can link those software titles to different people or to different departments. I don't know if I've got a better view of software assets in here. Probably not. We do have this services concept that's in here. The services is like a higher level block, and this actually can link then to different assets. So you can have assets linked down to these services. But this is a pretty small sample of the assets that are capable of being tracked in this asset tool. Maybe we'll do a different demo where we have a full blown asset with software in there and lots of other different device types.
Okay, great. Thanks. The next one I have is on the screen where it showed all in-stock laptops. Can the user edit directly from the grid, inline editing, or do they need to open each record? It looks like one of our attendees who's also knowledgeable in GSM put in an answer as well, but let's address it in case others are thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So in this grid, as far as I know, you do have to open the screen to edit these. Actually, on our mobile client, you can do editing right in the grid. So you can actually turn on in-grid editing. You can change these and just go through it. For example, you could have the status be changeable and just change the status. But here in the asset module, you need to go in and make a change. Click in and edit it and then change it.
Okay, thanks. Next up, does the asset catalog function as a CMDB? How does it track software and licenses?
This assets database is really open and you can use it for whatever you want, right? What we've got in here, we're tracking cloud subscriptions and devices and people. And yes, you can track software in here. And one of the advantages that I've seen with Asset, and we were a Sharewell partner for a long time, Sharewell had some kind of out of the box asset modules. And if those didn't work for you, you had to go in and build your own. This asset has templates. So when you are creating a new schema, you can apply a template to it. I don't know if I've got the templates loaded in here, but there's lots and lots of different templates. So if you want a software title template, you can just create a schema and apply that template to it.
And Eric, when you say schema in JSM, is that equivalent to a CI type in Sharewell?
Yeah, it's just the database fields, the schema, just the layout of the fields, basically. So the data that you're tracking. So like an object in Sharewell.
Okay, thanks. Next question. What's the timing for scanning OCR?
Oh, when is that coming out? It's on my list right here. It's down towards the bottom and I've got it as medium, but it's basically next. You can see we're down to adding the torch back into the barcode scanner. That's the flashlight. And then OCR is next. So it's going to be by the end of the year for sure to do OCR scanning. And then I just don't know if we're going to get it done in November, but it'll be done by the end of the year for sure. So this little list of features for that. So that is coming soon. And that's going to be really cool because you can use the scan in serial numbers, but you can also tag any field with it. And so if you've got a field that you're commonly typing in, but it's like on the box or on the device. So say model, you'll be able to point the OCR at it and just have the OCR pull that in. So you won't have to type it in. So it's going to be really nice. I think for serial numbers on Macs, those are quite lengthy. And that's been a discussion to scan those in. OCR would be really nice. I think they're like 16 or 18 digits. So we're going to have that. And we haven't 100%. I'm playing right now with the different ways that we can implement that OCR. One way is you take a picture and then you highlight the piece of text that you want to be OCR'd. I like that way because I've done some other OCR software, like Ego is a big outdoor battery operating company. And they have a little serial number scanner that is OCR to scan the serial numbers on their battery and their devices. But it's terrible. I've never gotten it to work. And it's one of those really quote unquote smart ones that like tries to find the serial number and expand to cover the whole thing. But it just doesn't work. And I'm like, if I could just take a picture and draw a square around the serial number, that would be really simple. So we'll see what works best. We might even have some templates around OCR. So very specifically, so you can apply a template for Mac serial number scanning, because that's a very defined box that we could build for OCR where you could just stick the box over the serial number and pull everything in that's in the box. But yeah, that's next on the list and that's coming out this year for sure.
Great update. Thank you. All right. The next question is the main UI of the mobile app editable in terms of options showed? Is it possible to restrict certain options depending on the user using the app, such as limited access to change the status for specific technicians and give vision to specific fields, so on?
Yeah. So in both the asset tool in JSM and also our mobile app, they're both really configurable. So you can show or hide whatever fields you want. So for example, in our mobile app, if the field is in asset, we can show it. We can show it in the grid or on the detail screen. So a lot of times we're showing like maybe a half a dozen fields in the grid and then all the fields on the detail screen and then just the editable fields on the edit screen. But that's completely changeable. It's really simple to change. So just as an example, if I want to go in here and I want to add a different field to the grid, I just go in here and let's say I didn't want to look at the warranty expiration date. I can just remove it. And then if I want to add a different field, like what was the purchase date, I just click grid, hit OK, hit save, and then that'll show up. So then I can just go in here and the purchase date is over here. And if I want to move that around, I can just go in here and I can say, hey, purchase date, I really want you up here. And you can see we can make this editable in grid. So we can actually edit these in the grid. So every field you can make editable in grid or not. So we can also do that. So so their purchase date moved up there. So if you want to add fields, that's really how our mobile client works. In the object schema, it's the same, very similar. So if I go in here and I want to see what the cost is, but I don't really care about when it was created or updated, I can do that. And then if I want to move the cost here, so very similar on how, so you can make the mobile experience, or the StrataCom mobile experience look just like assets. So here I moved cost up to here. So yeah, if it's available, and also, so we do have, on the mobile side, especially, we have a lot of security around, we typically put it around the buttons. Data security is a little differently. That's handled by JSM, but we do button securities. For example, on the homepage, you can hide any of these buttons that you want. If you have special queries that you don't want certain people to see, you can just hide that button and only give it to, say, the desktop text and not like the help desk if they happen to have this mobile client. So you can get pretty granular with the security on our mobile client. And same thing with security on assets. You can get pretty granular in general in JSM. In fact, JSM is like really, you can get really granular with like more so than our mobile client, but we do it like top down security where JSM does more of a security everywhere.
Okay, thanks. Our next attendee would like to know if JSM needs to talk to Intune or SCCM to collect information, or if it gathers through a JSM client on the laptops.
Yeah, so JSM does have its own scanner. It's pretty good. So we do have some customers using that. It can also talk to Intune or SCCM and pull data in from that. So if you're happy with your Intune or SCCM or asset management of choice scanner, you can pretty easily, there's probably a marketplace app to pull that data in, or you can write a script to pull it in or export it to CSV and pull it. There's lots of different ways to get the data in. So yeah, and it's the same thing in the Share world. We would see that a lot with CAM, where CAM customers, they would turn the scanner on, but they'd also supplement with SCCM data and they'd pull the SCCM data in. So you could do the same thing. So that I'd say the scanner's quite a bit better than what ShareWorld's CAM scanner did, especially for the network devices. ShareWorld's scanner was good at like Windows desktops and servers, but terrible at everything else. So the JSM scanner is quite good at network devices and other things besides just the Windows. But if you've got a complete scan already, say an SCCM, and you've got all your devices in there, we can just pull those over into Asset. Typically what we run into, especially if we're going into a customer and they want our help planning their asset management strategy, is they've got multiple sources of data that they're pulling in, trying to pull into one place, and generally into their ITSM tool so they can do management with it and they can assign it to people and they can use it for ticketing and change management for Mac devices. So typically in your standard implementation, if you've already got the data somewhere, we're typically not recommending doing another scanner and just pulling all that in. We'll just pull the data in with an integration or like a script to pull that data in, depending on what it is.
All right, thanks. The next question revolves around licensing. This person would like to know, depending on certain elevated rights, is the pricing for licensing different in cost? You could answer that question. We give value to Rod, or
I can answer. So essentially, so I know a lot of the people on the call are probably Share customers. So essentially, in the Share world, you'd pay for CSM and then you'd pay for CAM separately. And Share basically only had one price tier, although they had this enterprise thing for a while. JSM's got a few different price tiers. They've got this free and then the standard and then this premium and enterprise. So those are your 4 choices. The majority of Sharewell customers are going to fall into premium. So if you go out to Atlassian site and they're looking at pricing, you're probably going to want to price premium or enterprise. And here's why. With premium, you get all this asset management stuff for free. You get the scanner. So if you're looking for a good network scanner, you get that for free. You get the chat that exists already for Teams and Slack, like the ability to chat with the technicians and the customers to chat. That's included. So there's a lot included in the premium that's not in, say, standard. Assets, the big one. We think all of our ITSM, like anybody we're working with is going to need assets. So you're going to be looking at the premium, but all that's included. So you're essentially paying one price.
Eric, Here, just to pile on there, and then
Yep.
for the enterprise, if you have multi-tenancy needs or you want to get our analytics, that's the reason you go to enterprise. But you covered premium very well there. So
Yeah, yep. Enterprise has got some great other features. The data analytics with Data Lake is really great. Rod, what's the I'm forgetting the messaging notification system. Just had a blank that you get.
the virtual agent, you mean? I'm not sure.
Oh no, the one
No,
that's
no.
the one that Ops Genie. Yeah, so
Ops
Genie is
Genie. Oh yeah, no,
included.
that's included in both the premium and enterprise versions. Yep.
Yep. So Ops
PagerDuty.
Genie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
PagerDuty replacement. Yeah.
So we're working with a lot of customers that were using PagerDuty and Sharewell, and they can actually get rid of PagerDuty because Ops Genie is included for one price. So everything's basically one price. You know what you're going to pay for that, and the product's really extensible. There is a really great marketplace out there. A lot of Sharewell customers get burned by the map store. It was fine, but a lot of the maps, they didn't work with certain versions, and Atlassian's app store is pretty large, and you can go out and buy it. So you could go out and create your own time tracking for $1 per employee per month. You can go out and get like an off-the-shelf time tracking app that plugs right into JSM, so you can track time against tickets and things like that. So there's some really great apps out there for extensibility, but I'd say we've done quite a few Sharewell to JSM transitions this year already. And most of them the customers are pretty happy just with the base JSM premium or enterprise and all the functionality that they get with it. So I think to answer the question, circle back, basically one price, you get pretty much everything. That they do have they've got Jira software that is a separate. So if you're a development shop and want to use Jira software to track your defects and things, that is a separate product. In JSM, you'll get everything you need for one price.
Thanks. Great description. The next one is a related question, a very good one. In which versions of Jira Service Management is Asset available?
Yeah, it is in premium and enterprise, or it's available. It might be available in standard, but it's extra. I don't even know for sure, but I wouldn't recommend standard for anyone we're talking to, just because premium's got all this other stuff the scanning tool and all this other stuff you're going to use.
Yeah, anyone using Sharewell is definitely a fit for premium and enterprise anyway. Standard package is really tailored for very small shops that really aren't doing full ITSM, I would say.
Yeah.
Next question. In a case that we populate a schema with different kinds of equipment, but they all came from the same source, is there a way to split the type of equipment to go to each subcategory? For instance, software, CSV, and then populate desktop, laptop, etc. in the corresponding subcategory.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. So if it's all coming from one place, can you stick it in these different schemas? And the answer is yes. So if I'm writing a script to put data in, the schemas all have their own ID, and you can actually see up here in the URL, like the schema for laptops is 61. So when you create a device, you actually tell it what schema to go into. So you have to know what the IDs of these schemas are when you're moving data over. But if you're doing an import or you're doing a script, or if you're using an out of the box integration to something like Intune, you're going to tell the data tool what schema to put the data into. So let's say you've got a data source that's got, say it's got desktops, laptops, servers, and people in it, right? But all in one data source. So you can consume all that data and put it all into assets. And then you just check, you probably have some sort of flag in the data source that says what it is. You just put it into the proper schema. So if I wanted to put it in laptops, I put it in schema 61. If I want to put it into phones, I put it into schema 28. So you just have to know what those schemas are. And it just tells you right in the browser. So if I put it in monitors, I put it in schema 24. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you. All right, next up, does this include change and configuration management to track CRs and display impact diagrams?
Yeah, so once you get into Jira Service Management, I'm hesitant to go into this one because people have been screwing around. But if I went into like our StrataCom one, yeah, you've got service request incidents, changes, post incident reviews. You've got a change calendar services. So now you've got in JSM, you've got all of your modules, your change modules, and then what you do is you just link into the assets. So I don't even know if I've got me here. I know I've done a bunch of different changes on here, but I don't think I've done an asset. Oh, this is actually I was messing around with something else. That's why that one's so weird. So here's our affected services, and then we can tie an asset in here too. Let me go into an existing incident. But in any case, yeah, you can tie those assets to changes. There is the capability of doing like upstream, downstream. I haven't seen that used a lot, really in any tool, but the capability is there to do that. Yeah, these are all the different fields. Yeah, here I've got it. I can link an asset here, so I can go in here and I can look up one of these assets. You can see all these different names of assets. Here's Eric's laptop, so I can tie that asset here. So you can do that in any module. So the asset module, it does have a little bit different interface than JSM, but it's basically integrated right into JSM. So you can work with asset fields in your JSM. When you edit a form, you can just throw an asset field on the form. That's basically what this is. And it links back to that asset and pulls it in. A lot different than in Share. If you had an asset field in CAM, you basically had to replicate all those fields into Sharewell from CAM and then keep them there. And they weren't up to date because the data was being updated in CAM and then nightly pulled into Sharewell. So if you're using stuff in Sharewell, it may have been out of date. So JSM is really nicely integrated into this asset system where you can use asset data in tickets. It's live. You have access to all the fields in asset. They've really made the two products one product.
Oh, very good. Next step. Can it scan for items like monitors and docking stations, or do you have to input those manually?
So I'm going to say it depends. It will find monitors because monitors are hooked up to a computer and computers know, like Windows knows what monitors are connected to the computer. So generally, I'm going to say you can find monitors. Docking stations are a little bit different because they are more of a they can get their own IP address even. So you might discover a docking station separate from, it depends on the type of docking station you have. You might get a docking station separate from your device, or if it doesn't have its own IP address, it might just show up as part of the PC. Like it might show up as kind of like a monitor would, right? So I'm not as familiar with docking stations. I know monitors, they just get discovered as part of the PC. If you want them separate, you have to separate them when they come in. Generally, a scanning system is going to put a monitor as just part of the PC and not have a separate inventory item. If you want to inventory when it's out in the field, we'd probably have to do a little bit to separate that. Of course, you can inventory monitors. When they arrive, you can add them, and then you can use those in like a service catalog to find the monitor. Monitors, you almost have to asset tag. A lot of monitors don't have serial numbers, strangely enough, at least not on the monitor. Monitors are a little tricky, but you'll see them show up attached to PCs in these scans. And docking stations, they can either show up separate or attached.
All right, great. We sure have a lot of good questions today.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for the questions. Keep them coming. The next one I have is for customers who already have a JSM instance for asset management, is it possible just to get the mobile app? And how does the pricing work?
Oh, yeah. So if you've already got JSM and you want that mobile app for scanning, you can contact us for pricing. It's pretty inexpensive. We do price it like a lot of things in JSM. If you buy an add-on, it's priced for the number of seats that you have, but it's really inexpensive just because we know a lot of times it's just your field services that use it. But yeah, and if you've got on-premise or cloud, it works with either. So just contact Laura or Steve or Jack, depending on who you're working with for pricing. You can go to our website to find out more too. And yeah, you can buy it. It typically takes us, like I set up this StrataCom training system, mobile. I wanted to use it because the schema was a little better than I had in the StrataCom one. I think I spent an hour setting up all that demo stuff. I just did it from scratch. So everything you saw, like the queries and the adding the laptop and all the scanning and all those, it took me about an hour to set up. So typically we will set it up for your asset environment because it's probably going to be different than what our out of the box setup is. But generally it takes us an hour to set up, and we don't charge for it. Just part of the service. So
Great overview. Thank you. And I put my email into the chat for a quick click if you'd like to understand the pricing feel free to click that link. I'd be happy to communicate with you on that. Let us know how many Sharewell licenses you currently have, or if you're a Jira Service Management user, how many JSM licenses, and we can build a quick quote so you can see if it's something that would be within budget. Happy to help. All right, we have 2 questions left. So at this time, I'm going to put out a final call for questions. If you've been thinking about anything, please enter it now. After our final question, we will conclude the webinar, but we can continue going as long as needed to answer all those questions. Please enter them now. All right, Eric, question. Do you still need analytics if you want to build dashboards for assets data?
So so today, yes. January, no, or January, February. So right now, Assets doesn't have dashboarding capability, but that's coming first quarter of next year. So right now, if you wanted to see a dashboard today, you could do a dashboard in JSM, but you'd have to move the data in there. It's a little, at least a pointer back to the data. So we had talked about showing dashboards in JSM, and I said, you know what, let's just wait until they come out first quarter, and we'll show the native dashboards for Asset. And also, Atlassian just did an acquisition or announced an acquisition. It's a big aggregator, and it's got a ton of reporting. It's like a more asset management life cycle reporting tool and aggregator. So I think the next asset demo we do probably in a couple months, we'll probably pull that in also. So we'll have dashboards, and then we'll have all of this information from this other product that Atlassian just announced yesterday or today that they're acquiring. It's all around Assets probably growing the fastest for features and functionality. So Atlassian's really putting a lot of oomph behind the Asset product, and they're just included it with get that Premier subscription. You'll just get everything that's released for Asset included in there. But that's an excellent question. In fact, I tried to get Enterprise a little tough to get for partners. I would have had to set up a Atlassian One system to do that. So we'll have our own data lake and reporting soon in our demo system. But it's an excellent question. Yeah, in just a couple months, you'll be able to do dashboards in premium, and we won't need the enterprise version to do dashboards in Asset. Now, of course, you've been able to do dashboards in core JSM all along. It's just against this Asset data that we're waiting for dashboarding capabilities.
Great, thanks. The last question I see here, again, final call for questions. The last one we have is someone was wondering where you can find out more information on Jira as an ITSM solution. Rod has provided a link in the chat here that'll take you to. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a newer entry to the market. Everyone's been familiar with ServiceNow. They've been around for decades. Jira Service Management is one of the newer ones to the market, which we think is a huge advantage. Modern, fresh, not all the legacy code behind it. But it is a full, robust solution. It's ranked in the leader quadrant right now by Gartner on their Magic Quadrant. So if you are looking for a full solution, you'll find it there. It's right up there with BMC's Stack, Ivanti, and ServiceNow as one of your 4 choices that's ranked in the leader. The brand awareness just isn't quite as high as perhaps the ServiceNow, but the solution is definitely fully baked. It's there and available. And if you'd like to see a demonstration, let us know. StrataCom did run a full deep dive. I think it's about an hour and a half long video that was for the Sharewell audience showing Jira Service Management. If you'd like to take a look at that recording, let me know. Grab my email address there and let me know. I'm happy to send you that so you can take a look at a full demo of JSM. Otherwise, we're happy to communicate with you one-on-one and set up a demo and talk through it and give a personalized demo for your team as well. StrataCom will be more than happy to get those demos arranged. So reach out to me if we can help with that.
Yeah, and Laura, I'd just like to add that, so Jira had a product called Service Desk that this JSM came from, and that was primarily, they've had that for about the last 10 years. That was primarily for ticket tracking, mostly on the defect side, right? They really needed a place to track defects before they went into their like scrums or Kanbans. So that's where this kind of came from. And then they added all the ITIL functionality around it about 3 years ago. So they've got, worldwide about 50,000 customers using JSM right now. The cost of entry is low, right? So if you've got less than 10 people, you can use it for free. So they've got a lot of customers using it, and we've had pretty great luck with it in our transitions from Share, and our consultants are really impressed with it. It's actually got a lot of the same functionality Sharewell had for development. Of course, I'm the one that developed mobile and Kanban and they've got like an excellent development tool. If you're into developing add-in tools, they've got an excellent way to develop add-in tools. It's the best I've ever seen. That you can integrate right into the tool. You can integrate a third party right into the frames. So look for some stuff coming out from us. We're also working on a couple other things we're working on with JSM is a license reclamation for Office 365 feature where you'll be able to pull in all your users and licenses from Office 365. And you'll actually be able to see, in fact, do I have that? You'll actually be able to see who is using what, and it'll show you, we'll have some dashboards around inactive users that are using active licenses. So right here, I've got some inactive users that have active licenses. So, we're paying for those. And I think it's a common problem. Customers we've talked to have people that do this, but they don't have any insight to it. We're coming out with integration to Office 365 to pull all this data down into assets, and you'll be able to see. So people, managers will be able to look at this data, and we'll also have some automation in there where you can actually deactivate the license and actually remove the licenses from Office 365 once it's deactivated. So, Office 365, when someone leaves, you can deactivate the user, but you're still paying for licenses that they're using, even though they're deactivated. And if you remove the license from a deactivated user and that license is sitting in your pool, you're paying for that license, even though it's not even assigned to anyone. So we have to have a little more around that. You'll see a webinar come out around this, but this is just one thing that we're working on with Atlassian to try to make some efficiencies in some customers' organizations.
Thanks. That was a great overview. Good history there. All right. I don't see any other questions in our queue. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. As I mentioned, we did record, so we will be emailing it out after we have a chance to upload it to our website in the next week. I'd like to thank you for attending. Please do reach out with any questions or follow-on conversations you may like, and I hope you'll join us on our next webinar coming up in a month. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.